And there it is. Counting up means we're recording. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Sustainiacs. I am Michael Vincent. I'm always the Sustainiac. And I just met another Sustainiac, and she's on like the other side of the United States from me in a very, very cool town that I love, which is Phoenix. Her name is Amanda Jordan, and she is the circular economy project manager at the city of Phoenix, which struck me, Amanda, because are you like the only one in the United States who has that title for their city?
I am one of few. I think there's at this point about 15 of us who are government employees that have circular economy called out in our title. But for the
Okay.
entire state of Arizona, there's only two of us, and the other person is my specialist on my team. So,
So rare. I've got a
mhm.
rare gem here in the Sustainiac studio today. Well, she's not in the studio. We actually don't have a studio. It's virtual. But Amanda Jordan, so how are you today? Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, doing well. It's Friday, ready for the weekend. Yeah, happy to chat, and this is a nice way to kind of wrap up my week.
Yeah, fantastic. That's awesome. So what does a circular economy project manager do for the city of Phoenix, or any city in particular? I mean, circular economy is like it's a new thing. It should have been around forever, right? But
Yeah,
it's a new thing, and that's it's no easy task to take a linear economy and say, let's bend this around a circle, right? There's a lot
right.
of things you got to add and stuff like that. So what's going on there? Is it just that Phoenix is like incredibly progressive, and what do you do there?
Yeah. So my role here is very unique, not only for Phoenix, but for the U.S. as a whole, as we were just chatting. I am cross-appointed under our Public Works Solid Waste Management Division, so the entity that handles all waste and recycling services for single-family residential, and then our Community and Economic Development Department under Business Attraction. So all that to say, my main purpose is how do I cultivate pilots, programs, partnerships, and conduct business attraction to get either early stage entrepreneurs or more established companies into the Phoenix region to help us divert our waste away from landfill. Um, while circular economy is still kind of nascent terminology for folks who aren't Sustainiacs, who aren't living this world. Phoenix
I love
has
it.
actually we've been doing this for a while. We've been doing this since 2011, actually. So
Nice.
we are a leader in the U.S. in terms of adapting and embracing this type of transition. Um, and so, Phoenix is also unique because we're one of the few municipalities that we own our facilities. So we're the trucks picking up from your curbside, we're bringing it to our facilities that we own, whether it's the transfer station or the material recovery facility or the compost facility. We have 5 closed landfills and 1 active landfill. And I call that out because maintaining ownership over all of that is what has allowed us to lean into circularity and be more innovative because we own the waste and we're able to offer it up as raw manufacturing feedstock to entrepreneurs.
Amen. I
Yeah,
need to, I need to, I need to interrupt you because
no, go for it.
amen,
Mhm.
sister. I mean, holy cow. I'm in recycling of plastics, right? In
Mhm.
my main job. And, talking to municipalities and people who I would say they have a similar role as you are. I mean, their goal is to create recycling and circularity there. They may not have that same exact title, but I would say that the same goal is kind of there. But
Mhm.
they're stuck and cannot expand the duties and responsibilities and impact that you can because of exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Their city doesn't own it. They've contracted all that out, and now those contracts say, no, 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 no. You can't divert volume from us,
Mhm.
even though we're going to incinerate it and throw it in the ground. You
Mhm.
you can't take it away from us, and it's a money thing, unfortunately, right? I mean, those contracts
Yeah.
mean big money, and that is a huge, unfortunate stumbling block in the United States for most municipalities. We don't have to dive into that too far. I don't want Phoenix to name and shame and blame some other communities and start a war going on. Uh, but that is a huge, huge point.
Yeah. And I think, Phoenix, we're the fifth largest city in the US and one of the fastest growing regions. And quite frankly, it's expensive to do recycling. So it's completely understandable that smaller cities, that don't have the population size or budgets that we do as such a large city, are not able to keep up with the costs in running these types of programs. And we saw a lot of that, when China released the national sword policy back in 2018, where you saw
Yeah.
recycling basically collapse across the world because we were really reliant on sending those materials to them. And so Phoenix is fortunate in that, we have maintained ownership, and that allows us to prepare for those unexpected things like that. And
Well, you
and
don't rely on them, right? You don't get complacent because you're not taking the easy way out. I'm not going to say lazy. I mean, you're not taking the easy way out. We didn't just say, "Oh, this is going to last forever," so we don't need to do anything. They'll take care of it.
yes, yes, exactly. And right around that time, we were also going out for a rate increase for the first time in, I think, 11 or 12 years. And so we were seriously considering, stopping our programming around recycling services or altering it significantly. And it was the highest resident turnout to a city council meeting, where they were very vocal about, no, 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 we will pay more. We want these services. We want to be able to, maintain a healthier planet and environment for our
It's
communities.
amazing.
So we're really lucky in that.
Amanda, you are. I mean, I was talking to, and I can't say I'm working with this company, and it's a global company,
Mhm.
and they want to do the right thing. I'm not saying they're not. We're developing a program, and we're working, and it's fantastic what they do all across the board, from agricultural, farming, water, social, and recycling of materials, et cetera. They're doing stuff all across the world. I don't
Mhm.
that so I'm not what I'm saying isn't disparaging them whatsoever. If anybody can guess who I'm talking about, which there's no way. There's no way they will. But this person who's in charge of this program, as we're talking through the specifics of it, was very clear in their opinion that people will not lift one iota or care about recycling in the slightest.
Yeah. Well, we got the data
Which I
to
don't think is
counter
true.
that.
I don't find that to be true at all. Do
I,
you?
I don't either. At the end of the day, people want clean air, clean water, safe environments to live in, and they will participate in pathways to do that are easily accessible to them, which a lot of the time is recycling programs. And so,
Exactly. It's
um,
convenience and ease and get away from the confusion. Oh, that's a one, that's a two, that's a seven, that's a three. Well, what is seven? Well, that's all others. Well, what the hell does that mean?
yeah.
You know what I mean,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, I mean, for us, we have a single stream system specifically because of that. We found that, when trying to go out there and educate, and there's no national standard here in the US on what each thing what each program should accept as recyclables. And so you could
Right.
live in one town and work in the other, and it's completely different on what they'll accept. And so for Phoenix, we decided to take that confusion away by saying, put everything in the same bin, and we will sort through it and
You'll figure it out.
process it for you, figure it out, and take that pressure off of the consumer, or
That's
the
cool.
resident. Yeah.
Does that cause confusion at all that people say, well, Phoenix recycles everything? And you're like, well, no, 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 no. That's not true. We do this, right? I mean, because you can't just say, hey, these volumes that we're taking in, even though it's single stream, all this is being recycled, because that's a falsehood, right? I mean, it's you have to. What are you pulling out of it, really, right?
Yeah.
Because even if you're, let's say number five polypropylenes, right? You're taking those in there, and you do recycle those. There's still a
Hmm.
portion of those that you don't because you can't,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's contaminated in some way, or because you have to run an efficient process as well, right? For
Yeah.
the people want you to recycle everything, but they also want you to do it in a cost effective manner, and that means not everything gets done because it becomes too costly or inefficient, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So. Well, and you're engaging with the people, and you've got these neighborhood watch people out there that are going, "That's a number two. You can't put that in there. That's a number three. Did you rinse that?" No, I'm not. I'm kidding. It's not like that. But during these tours, and I'm sure it doesn't happen this way, but I'm sure you get feedback. Is there good feedback? Do you guys like go, oh wow, public's got a great idea. Maybe we should change it that way, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if I'd classify it as feedback, but more of like request of services.
Okay.
A lot of times we get inquiries wanting us to provide curbside composting services. There's a big influx of interest from residents on how do we get that going. I know that in the past few years, majority of our new residents are coming from California, and they're expecting the same level of services that they've received in the state of California, which is fair. And so we welcome that, because hearing consistent requests for the same type of service or thing allows us to gather that data and make the case to leadership of, hey, majority of residents are wanting us to figure out how do we do curbside composting, and it's sort of that selling point to mayor
Yeah,
and
sure.
on,
Yeah, that
why
demand.
we need to
Yeah.
explore this. This is why we need to increase budgets. So at the end of the day, it's great. Like, we love that. We want them to communicate to us what they're wanting, what they feel is missing from our services, so that we can gather that and push it up the chain. So yeah, I mean, gosh, in terms of suggestions, I don't think we've gotten
Well, you
any.
don't have to think of anything
Yeah.
specific. I was just wondering. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's a great thing because I mean, transparency is what is needed, and
Mhm.
and I'm digging into what you guys are doing there because you've got people that come to the city, the city council meetings and say, no, 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 we'll pay more,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And but then you've got people outside of Phoenix, almost everywhere, it seems, who are like, you're not even recycling the stuff anyway. And like here in Chattanooga, you can't go down to the MRF and say, "Hey, can I see what's going on?" Oh, hell no,
Yeah.
that's behind closed doors. Just trust me, this data here is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you want to make me not believe that? Don't let me see what's going on, right? And so, regardless of whether that's a cover up or not, I'm not saying it is. It certainly breeds distrust, right? And
Right.
so having that public there, so your recycling rates have got to be way better than everybody else's or the
Yes.
majority.
Yeah. So I think we're fortunate, as a public entity, as a government agency, you know, anyone can put forth a public records request, and we have to deliver all the information they're looking for. So there's this accountability factor that we know
Yeah,
as public sector. And we don't want to hide anything. Like, we want people to know. We want to combat that message of like recycling is not real, because for us it is real. Like, we are doing good work in this space. We do have end markets that we're selling these commodities into, so they can be made into new products and truly being recycled and engaging in circular economy. And that's why we do things like holding these tours, the master recycler program. We're trying to kind of spread the message far and wide. um, I think that, there is a lot of distrust out there, especially, post 2018 shifts, especially with kind of the lack of data being shared from
yeah.
others on the private sector side. And so
The
it's
opacity,
completely,
the opacity is what kills it, right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. So,
because the public, no matter where they're at and around the world, they read the headline and go, "Well, see,
yeah, yeah. But so for us, for Phoenix proper, so not the whole metro region, Phoenix proper, we are at about a 36% diversion rate away from landfill, and we have a 92% participation rate in our recycling program by our residents. And
wow,
that's the most amazing thing about that is it's all voluntary. We cannot incentivize or disincentivize folks to participate. They can call us and say, I don't believe in recycling, give me 2 trash cans, and we have to do it. And so it's really validating,
yeah." Who
you
is
know?
that guy?
Yeah,
Who's that guy? Do
I
you
can't
have a
say
red pin on it? You have a red pin on the map going, "There's that guy right there."
this guy again. No, I've never actually received a call like that, but
I
just to
was gonna
kind of
say.
to demonstrate, we are, everything is voluntary that we're doing, and so it's really reassuring for us as the folks who are doing this work that not only do we have high participation rate, we have vocal residents who are advocating for us to, the policymakers, that they want these services and they're participating, and it's all being done, of goodwill. They don't have to do these things, but they do, and we're appreciative of that.
That's fantastic. I mean, it I would say I don't know what the makeup is of the population in Phoenix, but the times that I go out there, I feel that it's a very, very friendly population, and it leans towards a more educated and younger demographic.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think that's because of the university systems that are right there, and just the health benefits of living in the desert Southwest is tremendous, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much there. I mean, you can be in Phoenix and then drive a, a little while, but you can be skiing in the mountains fairly quickly.
Yeah, like 2 hours or less, depending on what town you're
Yeah,
trying to go to.
I really, people don't
Yeah.
understand that, right?
Yeah.
And it's a huge agricultural area as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
People, I mean, they think of California as that's where all the produce and everything comes from, which is true. But Phoenix area is not just cactus and scrub brush.
Correct.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot going on there. That is tremendous stuff, and it's all. Let me ask you this, because I was looking at numbers, and perhaps you don't know, but I'd like your take on it anyways, and what you think. I ran across, there's different organizations that are out there that collect data and give out grants and funds and all this other kind of stuff. And they do a lot of study. They get a lot of money from big corporations, like the Recycling Partnership is one of them. They get
Hmm.
huge amounts of money, and they do a lot of really good data research. And they came out with this new data set
Hmm.
fairly recently that shows the accessibility, right, percentage of households. I don't know if
Hmm.
you've seen that yet, but it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think I
And
know what you're referring to. Hmm.
yeah, and I look at it and I go, okay, here is, and I looked at specific different states, and I'm like, okay, this really doesn't make sense to me, because here is a state where 82%, and it's not Arizona, but it is a state where 82% of the population has access to curbside recycling.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, and it specifically, I was looking for polypropylene, and polypropylene, they have access 82% to put it in their curbside recycling, right?
Hmm.
3% recycling rate of
Wow.
polypropylene.
Ay, ay, ay.
According to, when you go to the EPA statistics, would say, okay, here's the consumption, here's the recycling reported, so here's your gap,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Which relies on numbers being reported, right? So there's some fudge there. But holy cow, it made me go, do we actually consume that much plastic in our homes? And then I looked at bottles, and it's even worse for
Yeah.
plastic bottles.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? Maybe that makes sense. And I'm wondering, what do you see? Because if I go out somewhere, like I go to the ball game, or I go to, the ballpark, or my daughter's ballet, or whatever it happens to be,
Hmm.
there's a couple bottles of water there, or Gatorade, that are consumed. When I come home, I don't have bottles of water. I have a filtration system. So like, do we just not consume as much plastic as home as we think? You know what I'm saying? I mean, as far as
Yeah.
certain plastics, is it just somewhere else? Are we barking up the wrong tree because the plastic is somewhere else, is not in the house?
So I think,
I don't know. I'm not trying to say
yeah.
curbside is bad. It is fantastic. I'm just saying, I work with companies who are really, really trying to improve the domestic supply of recycled plastic content.
Hmm.
And we're looking at all these different solutions. And my contention is, it's not at the house for specific plastics.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think I might have a bit of the opposite view, honestly.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
I think that, folks tend to do what we call wish cycling, where anything that is a type of plastic, they're not sure if it's recyclable or not, so they're going to put it in the bin anyways, which we actually ask people not to do. If you're not sure, put it in the trash. Um,
Yeah.
I think I think speaking strictly from Phoenix and our experiences here, we, I mean, we have high participation rate in our programs, and we do see a lot of just about every type of plastic coming through the MRFs. So I wouldn't say it's a household thing. I think it's maybe a lack of a disconnect between whoever's trying to collect those materials and provide this service and engaging the resident to participate in the program. So whether that may be education, understanding like this is a rigid plastic, a harder plastic, these are always recyclable, put them in your bin. Or it could be a lack of transparency from the service provider on the data. A lot of times things get lumped together and they maybe don't break
Mm,
down by waste type. And so I think
mm,
there can be
mm.
a lot of misinformation out there. But
Yeah.
yeah, and here in Phoenix, I think we have the opposite problem where people are putting too many types of things in there that we actually don't want, like the soft plastics. And so how do we start to educate and reverse that behavior so that they're putting only the materials that we can actually work with into the
Takes a
bin?
lot of money to educate the population.
It does. It does. A lot of money, a
Well,
lot
I
of
mean,
time.
how often does a resident, an average resident engage in local information?
You know,
I mean, I don't get a local paper here, and
yeah.
I use I don't have cable. I use streaming services, which is very, I've got a TV that I don't have need a cable, just Wi-Fi, and I'm
Hmm.
I'm I'm rocking and rolling. So
Hmm.
my exposure to local matters, and I would guess that the majority of Americans has been reduced quite a bit, making your job a bit tougher to reach them because if they
Yeah.
only engage in that material once or twice, the likelihood of them turning on the TV or listening or whatever, and you happen to be talking about it, are not high, right? So your method of education's got to be difficult, right?
Yeah. So the main avenues that we do as our zero waste team, which is a team of three, uh,
Yeah.
they
Well, that ought to
they
cover Phoenix.
yeah, I mean, just 1.6 million people to teach.
Oh yeah, it's a piece of
So
cake. Just 500,000 a piece, and you're good.
yeah, yeah. So a lot of what we do is obviously the tours, as we've discussed. We do a lot of classroom presentations for K through 12. We do guest lecture series at the universities. We also, and I think the most impactful, is that we table at just about every neighborhood community event that we can. And
Mm.
that's when we're able to talk with people in person, answer questions, distribute information, educational materials. And that's where we kind of see it being more impactful. And so while we're not maybe touching those same folks through digital media, I mean, we do have a really great social media program. Our zero waste team is really clever and stays on the social media trends and the videos they create.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think on average, our zero waste team educates or engages with at least 15,000 residents every fiscal year, which is no small feat for a team of three, but is not that big of a dent when there's 1.6 million Phoenicians in Phoenix proper. And so I think,
Phoenicians, I love that. Yeah.
so, it is tough. Education is tough. But
I
that's
want to
why
move
we
there just so I could call myself a Phoenician.
come on down. You can be a snowbird, an honorary Phoenician.
From
Um,
Tennessee?
from Tennessee. Why not?
Eh, I guess.
Um,
Well, I'm
so, and
originally from Cleveland, so that'll work.
so there you go. We'll
Cleveland.
use that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
why not? What the hell?
that's why we've found the need to launch things like the Master Recycler program, where we do have residents that we know on a first name basis that are heavily engaged. They come to us with questions, and they're the ones sort of going around their neighborhoods and kind of scolding folks if they're doing things incorrectly. And so we that was sort of the impetus for this program, is like,
Well,
okay,
it's
we got
brilliant. You
these.
get the kid. You get the kids because the kids will shame their parents.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Kids are super impactful.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, so we, seeing these people who are so passionate, we're like, how do we formalize this and like bring them in as unofficial team members that can help us reach farther and wider? And so yeah, we're really excited to get that program launched.
that's fantastic. So, are you just going after? I mean, not just. I know you guys are going after commercial as well. But does that fall under you?
Actually, it does not. So we have a
Okay.
law here that prohibits us as the city from providing any waste management services to non-residential. So we can only
What?
service single-family residential households. So anything that's, I believe, 12 or less. So some townhouses, some condos, but everything else is handled by the private sector. Republic Services is headquartered here. WM has a huge presence here. They do the waste management golf tournament
Okay.
every February. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of the big name private haulers, here in our market. But yeah, back in the early '80s, the city leadership at the time didn't want to have to compete for contracts anymore with private sector, and so we just sort of split it down the middle and said we'll do single family residential. You guys handle the rest, and it's been like that ever since. So
Seems like a deal was struck to me, and it may work quite well. It doesn't mean it's bad, but
yeah,
yeah, I
and the
got you. So
the
go ahead.
caveat is we cannot pick up, but anybody can bring their stuff to our facilities. So
So
commercial
your drop
entities,
off facilities will accept from commercial,
correct. Yeah. We just cannot
but
physically
you
pick it
can't
up.
go solicit it from them.
Hmm.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, all right. Did you just wake up one day and say, "Look, circular economy. I'm going to go do this"?
Not at all. Not at all. Actually, I was one of those kids who had someone come to my class and teach us about sustainability, and it honestly scared me. I was, it's like 7 years old, second grade, and this particular instance was around water conservation and stewardship because obviously we're a desert city, and that just sort of like lit the spark in me. And I've always been really passionate about, saving the environment, being mindful of how we treat the earth. I ended up going to design school. So at that time, I began learning about circular economy, but it wasn't called that yet. This was, 2007, and Ellen MacArthur didn't exist yet, which is why we call
Oh, okay.
circular economy is because Ellen MacArthur
Yeah.
Foundation. So at that time, it was life cycle analysis, industrial symbiosis, cradle to cradle. And so I was learning these same concepts just under a different name. And for me, I had gone to Parsons Design School. So I was learning the front end of like, how are you mindfully selecting materials? How are you designing things with the intent to be disassembled or recycled properly?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was living in New York City at the time, and Hurricane Sandy hit, and it shut down Manhattan for an entire week, which was
Oh yeah.
mind boggling because it's New York City, right? You're like, what? Nothing like that could happen here.
A
And
hurricane. How can that happen
yeah,
here?
what? And
Yeah, Sandy
so,
was a wake up. It was like holy cow. But I fear we've forgotten again because another one could hit. But anyways,
yeah. And so at that time, gosh, what was that? 2013, 2014-ish.
yeah.
I had been working. I was working, at Eileen Fisher, which is a sustainable fashion brand. The school that I went to for undergrad, Parsons, is very well known for fashion design program. If you've ever watched Project Runway, that's filmed at the school, and so we kind of get funneled into the fashion worlds one way or another. And you know, post Hurricane Sandy, I was really inspired to kind of get back on the path of sustainability, business, and policy and governance. And so at that time, Arizona State University had launched the School of Sustainability, which was the first of its kind in the United States. A lot of my friends from high school growing up had gone through some of the first cohorts in School of Sustainability. And so I was really inspired, and I made the move back here to Phoenix and did my master's in sustainability solutions. So kind of going to the other end of the spectrum, focusing on policy and governance, and how do we get policies in place that enable circularity and support this sustainable transition. And then from there, I ended up at working for ASU under the what was known as Risen Incubator, Resource Innovation and Solutions Network. And that was the first time I kind of got to combine both of my worlds. Um, you know, Working with entrepreneurs and startups in the early stages of creating circular economy businesses, and helping them kind of get off the ground and enable the transition that was going on here in Metro Phoenix. And this was 2018, and I tell you, it was tough. Nobody knew what circular economy was. I literally had to like cold call, headhunt entrepreneurs like, you have a circular solution, you should join our program. And they'd be like, what are you talking
They're
about?
like, I have a what?
I'm just recycling tires. Like, what do you mean? And
Yeah.
then, I joined the city of Phoenix in 2021. And in that short time, it completely flipped. Now I think I get calls and emails from folks, at least 5+ a day, where they're like, we're a circular business and we can turn your trash into treasure. And this is what we want to do for you. And so it's been a huge flip in such a short amount of time, which
Yeah.
is really reassuring to me as someone who's been in this world for so long now. So yeah, I think we're starting to see it becoming more mainstream in terms of circular economy under the
I'm one of
Sustainiacs
those guys who
umbrella.
called you.
Yeah, probably.
That's it's really encouraging to see people doing that. Do you do and it's really I mean the drive forward happened quickly, right? I mean, I talk to people and they've been in these industries for 10, 15, 20 years and stuff like that. But it's really been the last 5 to 6 years
Yeah, yeah.
that whew, all of a sudden people are like, wait a minute. I mean, and you know, I was in logistics. I've been in logistics 36 years, and the pandemic, the COVID era, just blew up the importance of logistics and worldwide logistics.
Hmm.
And I think it also caused a lot of people to go, wait a minute, this shit ain't permanent. We got to figure some other stuff out, right? I mean, that motivation happened quick. That slap in the face. It's like everybody's got a plan and their life is going great until they get punched in the face. It was a huge punch in the face, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, here in Phoenix, acknowledging, what major disruptions had happened first with China national sword policy in 2018, and then shortly after with the COVID-19 pandemic. We've really started to lean into, how do we localize our circular economy efforts? How do we bring in all of the players along the supply chain and have them establish a presence, relocate to Phoenix, and provide these circular services, whether it's helping us as public works divert our waste away from landfill, or helping each other where one's waste is the feedstock for another's product or service. And how do you start to build out this system so that if another instance like a China national sword or a COVID-19 pandemic happens, we're more stable and secure in our supply chain because we've created this localized element to it. And so that's a lot of what I focus on as well. We have what we call our Resource Innovation Campus, which is our circular economy business park that we're actively developing at the moment. It's 40 acres of city-owned land co-located next to one of our transfer stations, MRF compost facility and closed landfill. And that's intentional because we want the businesses locating there, to be able to go over to one of those facilities and pull out materials for use as needed. And so we're really trying to, you know, showcase Phoenix as not only a major collaborator around solution development, but also leaning into innovation and really trying to collaborate to solve these problems at a larger scale. And so, it's no small feat, but we're fortunate because a lot of our economic development organizations here locally, like Greater Phoenix Economic Council, which services the entire metro region, they now have staff that are specifically honing in on, climate tech, circular economy businesses. And so we collaborate and strategize around how can we inform and educate them so that they're helping with business attraction at a wider level, to bring in
Mm-hmm.
these systems. And so really at the end of the day, it's all about partnership and bringing things together. And another really cool thing that we do, so because we own our facilities, we do currently at no cost open up to any private brand consumer product goods that are starting to experiment or change the material makeup of their packaging and products. And they can come to our facilities, bring those products, put them through the MRF as if, we had traditionally collected them, and see, sortation and capturability of the materials based on standard equipment in a MRF. And
Oh wow!
that's
So
been,
design testing of new products for end of
yeah,
life. That's
yeah.
fantastic.
So
Yeah, that's very
that's been
cool.
Yeah, that's been a cool thing we've been doing more recently in the past few years with some
Well,
big big
that's got
brands.
to be very satisfying for you to be bringing that because you started out in design, right? So
Mhm. Mhm.
you've come full circle too, and
Yeah.
you've understood for a long time that this all starts with product design.
Exactly. Yeah, and for forever these people were not talking. The designers are just designing, and then we have the waste management entities trying to
Well,
handle the waste
you
and
had end of life trying to figure this out,
yes.
and you didn't have the beginning of life figuring it out. When actually here is this is the problem. This is the problem.
Exactly.
Not here.
Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so we have that offering, and we make sure as City of Phoenix that we are plugged into a lot of these big consortiums that are driving this work. So we're a founding member of the US Plastics Pact. We were the first US city invited to join the Ellen MacArthur Foundation network in partnership with ASU from the work we were doing with them with Risen and the
Wow.
incubator. We engage with C40 cities. Our mayor sits on the steering committee, and so we're plugged into a lot of that network as well. And so Phoenix is very mindful that we're at the table of these conversations and helping to represent not only as public sector, but as public sector that doesn't have the policy levers that a California or a Washington has, where we're kind of like bootstrapping on the ground. How do we make this work without being able to, incentivize, disincentivize, put policy forth? We have preemption law, ban on bans. So, we got a lot
But
of
that
barriers.
that's here's the thing, though. I think it's a barrier to failing fast. I think it's a necessary hurdle to ensure, or maybe the unintended consequences is that what you build is going to actually sustain itself and work.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because those bans. I mean, look at California. They're banning plastic bags again.
Hmm.
I mean, because they banned them once and they tripled the amount of plastic bags going into their thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, those are easy. Like, oh, look, that's wish cycling.
Right.
When you can do that
You
stuff,
did a
right? And
recent
I think your
variation.
approach is more difficult, but that's what makes it right
Yeah.
and makes it more effective in the end. I
Yeah.
applaud what you guys are doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we really
Yeah,
lean into the economy part of circular economy. So how
yeah,
can we,
and that's the key, right?
yes, how do we conduct economic development to bring in these solutions in any way that you would with any other industry, but it's focused on sustainability. And that's why we've been so successful and have been a leader in the US in this transition. And we often lean on our private sector partners or connections to communicate up the chains. So at the state level, they're not usually engaged in this work to the minutia that city folk are. I would argue, and we have under our Arizona Department of Environmental Quality what's called the recycling fund. So all of the taxes the states collect on the landfills go into this annual fund of about $1 million plus. That is then supposed to be converted into a grant funding program to go out to the community. Any public, private, nonprofit can apply for the funds, and it has to be obviously like recycling or circular economy oriented.
Right.
And from 2008 until last fiscal year, those funds were reappropriated and redistributed to other general funds that were short and not used for any kind of recycling solution development. And last fiscal year, we went to all of the private sector entities here that are in this space and we said, hey, we we acknowledge the issues post COVID-19 pandemic. We know you guys are having issues getting certain materials. There's post consumer recycled content mandates coming down the line. And we kind of uh, ask them to go to the policymakers, the state legislators, and say, hey, we want these recycling funds reallocated back to what they're supposed to be for because we don't have enough people in the supply chain providing these materials to us. And it worked. So I think there's a lot of value in public and private sector coming together to build these solutions. And
Yeah.
we've seen that we're living it here in Arizona. And we were able to, get those funds out and funded 12 different entrepreneurs, nonprofits to cultivate solutions around circular economy and recycling and R&D in this space. And and yeah, and it was all thanks to private industry going and lobbying essentially, and it was a Republican who introduced the bill into the legislative committee session that got it passed. And so I think a lot of times people
Yeah.
think this is a maybe a more of a liberal perspective or
Yeah.
passion,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, like we all want to be able to breathe clean air. We all want to be able
No,
to like
I think it's the
go hiking.
process to get there.
Yes,
It's the
yeah.
process to get there that is the difference between the, it's the economy that you're talking about. And I think that's beautiful that you
Yeah.
guys do it, because that's the way to do it. I mean, from National Sword to where we are right now, and the necessity and what you guys are doing to create this regional circular economy, right?
Mhm.
You're not
Mhm.
creating this global one, because the global doesn't work. Especially because once the end of life happens, the value of that is so diminished. You can't ship it around the world and have it economically work. It's got to be
Mhm.
a small regionalized circularity, right? Not to mention the fact that there's misguided legislation and laws around the world to protect the environment that actually are inhibiting exactly what you're trying to do. Like certain
Mhm.
materials are now considered waste, and they're not. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, but we're trying to move used shipping nets from here to there, but you can't because they're now nylon waste. Well, but we're going to come over here and we're going to turn them into whatever,
Mhm.
but you can't do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, those are difficult things to get around. And I get it. I mean, National Sword made, when you dig into what happened really there, it made sense. You've had all these
Mhm.
entrepreneurs and stuff taking all this plastic. They're getting a lot of garbage stuff. The stuff they needed, they're working on, but the rest of it's going into the landfills that China's already putting their own stuff in. And they're like, wait a minute,
Mhm.
we don't need
Mhm.
everybody else's garbage too. This
Yeah.
doesn't work,
Yeah.
right? It's crazy.
Oh
But
yeah.
the transparency in what you guys are doing there is excellent, and I applaud that. Um, Man, we blew through 50 minutes.
And we sure
Bang.
did.
Yeah. It goes. That's what I tell people. I'm like, hey, come on to Sustainiacs. Well, how long is it? What's a long format? 45 minutes, an hour. And they're like, ooh, I don't know if I can talk like that. And I'm like, you can.
You'd
Trust
be
me.
surprised. Yeah. There's a lot to say.
Trust
But
me. And we
yeah.
haven't scratched the surface of everything we can dig
I know.
into.
I know.
And I love these because, Amanda, coming back on at another time to find out where guys have progressed to is always going to be another show. I hope you'll come back. Is there
Yeah.
is there anything you want to end by telling everybody to promote or get out there, or just say, listen, I got to go. It's Friday.
No, no, no. I think, you know, oftentimes when people hear Arizona or Phoenix, they don't necessarily think of sustainability, circular economy, innovation. And so I really try to get the message out there that we are doing really cool creative things here. We do have a lot more flexibility and accessibility to exploration around collaborations with other public or private sector entities. And we're very pro business here. So we're really looking at, how do we continue to connect with folks who are doing this great work and bring them here and help cultivate a cleaner, healthier Phoenix and Arizona as a whole. And so I always like to make sure to reiterate that, don't forget about us here in Phoenix. We don't have barriers and regulations in the ways that California does, and so there's a lot more capabilities and flexibility of what we can explore together, with folks who want to come into our market. And so, yeah, we're doing cool stuff down here, even though it's hot.
Check it out.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not that bad all the year round, though, is it?
It's I think 105 today, so it's pretty brutal. But
Yeah,
come
it's
come
like
October through April, gorgeous.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. October
Yeah,
through April. I mean, I moved to Southern Florida. People were like, "You're nuts," and I was like, oh, "Okay, no,
yeah.
it was fantastic."
You
Because
adapt.
instead of like 9 months inside because it's snowing like crazy, it's 9 months of perfect weather, and then like 3 months where it's so hot that you're not going out except to get in a pool, which
Exactly.
is
That's what
that's
I
all right.
always say is we treat summer how most folks treat winter, like, you know, May through August, we're going outside, we're hiding, we're not going outside, we're hiding from the sun, we're kind of hibernating in a way, or we're escaping to cooler climates. But
Yeah, exactly. I get it. It's wonderful. Hey, everybody. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on. And I mean that.
yeah.
I will reach out to you and bug you for updates, tomorrow. No, I mean, you got a week to solve a few things. But it's been fantastic. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this. It was very insightful.
Yeah,
Everybody, thank you for downloading and watching the Sustainiacs, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace and love.
thank you.